Hello students, we are continuing on from the chapter 1 rational numbers section. This is what we had a chance to write in class. If you had not had a chance to write this, please make sure that you copy it down to the highlight. You can pause and write it down first. And so if you'd like to do that, you can go ahead and pause now. All right, moving along. So now we're going to get started with a section on fractions. So you're going to start with this segment right here, and I'm going to erase the highlight, but as you can see, you're just going to continue from this point on. And before I continue this, you could go ahead and pause and copy this down. So if you'd like to do that, you could go ahead and pause now. All right, so the idea is this, all right? So one of the key things is you will see questions where it says, write a number as m over n, and it does mention something like if m and n are integers. That's really just saying you got to turn this number into a fraction. So in other words, let's be very clear when we're talking about fractions. We have mixed numbers that are something like the 3 and 2 fourths, like this one right here. You have a normal fraction that's like this, where you have one number over the other. Sometimes we also call this an improper fraction, but we'll just mention as fraction most of the time. And then lastly, we'll have decimal. A decimal looks something like this. All right, so just to be clear, these are the three things. And like we said, if it does say m over n, we are saying that we want to turn whatever number into a fraction. And usually it says a fraction in the simplest form. If it's already in the simplest form, you don't have to make much changes there. So to get us started here, we have a couple of things to take a look at. And so here are some rules that I would like us to hang on to. So the first one is, so we have these fractions. Now, let's talk about turning a mixed number into a fraction. So let's do an example. So let's say an example here is we have a number that is 3 and 1/3. How do you turn this into a fraction? Well, the proper way of looking at it is that this is a whole number. And so really, if you remember, it is 3 over 1. Now you're going to add it to this fraction, so it's really 3 over 1 plus 1 over 3. Now the problem with this is you can't add these numbers because in our rules of addition, you have to have the same denominator. So in order for that to happen, you would, let's say, want to turn both numbers into something over 3. So in order to do that, we need to multiply both the top and the bottom by 3. So because of that, we will then have 3 times 3 over 1 times 3. And then later you're going to add 1 over 3. So let's do a little bit of the math here. We'll get 3 times 3, which is 9, and 1 times 3, which is 3, plus 1 over 3. And now we could add these two numbers together, and that would make 10 over 3. So that would be our answer. I'm going to put a square around my answer because that's the answer that I'm looking for. So that's what I would do if I have 3 and 1/3, and I want to turn it into a fraction. Now, if you don't have enough space next to this, you could write it below, but I'm going to write another example next to it. And this is a shortcut way of doing it. So that's the proper way of doing it. Now we're going to do the shortcut, which is if I have 3 and 1/3, how can I turn this into that number in that fraction, but a little bit faster? So I'm going to rewrite this a little bit bigger. And I recommend that when you have this kind of question, you do the same thing, just so that you could identify, like it's easier to draw the arrows here, like we're going to do in a second. So you got to do, first of all, you're going to take that bottom number and you're going to go to the whole number and you're going to multiply these two numbers. Then you're going to take that number that you multiplied and you're going to add it to the top number. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. So 3 down here times the big 3, so that's going to be 9. 9 plus 1, and that equals the top number, which is 10. So you see how I go multiply and I add after. Now for the bottom, what do we do? Well, we leave it as is, so 10 over 3. I'm going to put a box around that. As you can see, these two numbers are the same. So there's two ways of doing it. This one's a little bit of a quicker way of doing it, but at least you know the reasoning behind it in the first section. So that's where we're going to leave it off, leave this lesson, and that's it for now.